thought that there was going to be a decision on the 13th or 12th of July. We were expecting a positive decision for good reason, and we didn't get that immediate relief that we had hoped for. But we're very encouraged with the fact that two little companies in Colorado, UR Energy and Energy Fuels, filed a petition that now is going into a new review, which is looking at the entire nuclear fuel cycle in the United States at the highest levels of government. Probably the most extensive review done in 3 or 4 decades on the front to the back of the nuclear fuel cycle.
It wasn't what you wanted, but are you seeing that as a positive? I guess from your press release, you see that as a positive.
Two small companies couldn't tackle the whole nuclear fuel cycle, okay? It was too big for us. So we focused mainly on the uranium front end. We certainly did mention that other portions of the fuel cycle were challenged. There's a number of positives here. We thought we had line of sight to some relief literally within 24 to 48 hours for good reason. Some of the positives is Secretary of Commerce said it was national security issue. The president agreed with that.
I'm looking at section 2 of the memorandum. The United States requires domestically produced uranium to satisfy the Department of Defense requirements. Now, that's the only bit that I can find that specifically talks about uranium manufacturing production in the US. What else are you seeing in there that's good for US uranium producers?
The memo itself indicates that the complete fuel cycle for defense and our power plants is challenged. It's broken. We don't have ability to mine a pound of uranium right now and run it on through conversion, enrichment, and up into the more highly enriched products with our existing infrastructure. Right. Now, with regard to the Department of Defense, they have to purchase uranium from the United States. The utilities do not currently have to produce their uranium for the United States, and that's the differential between it. The key grabs from this review is, as we said, we started off with a focus on the uranium mining. It's now a larger focus. The audience, the members of that working group are secretary level, Secretary of Defense, Secretary of Interior, Secretary of Treasury, State Department, FERC, NRC. These are all, the top of the tree. It's basically the president's cabinet, minus a few people like Homeland Security and Health and a few things like that. So It wasn't a no, it was no, we need more time. And I think that was the key element. They needed more time.
Where does uranium fit into that review? Is it a big piece of this? Because they talk about addressing concerns. They don't talk about addressing U.S. uranium production in anything other than in relation to the Department of Defense supply. So what's your expectation of what this 90-day review is going to give you?
Russia, China are building up their capacity that is well in excess of their requirements. So here we are, not even able to produce a percent of our requirements, where our foes are going to be able to produce many times greater than they need so that they can then create a global business to take over the entire fuel cycle in the world, including the United States. So, this is where the national security issue is very significant. There is a huge focus by the United States government on critical minerals, which uranium is one. Mm-hmm. And in our case, as a company, we also produce vanadium, which is a critical mineral. And so this is right up the alley of that initiative. So separate from the nuclear fuel cycle, you have the critical minerals too. So look, it's there's no certainty on the outcome, but we've certainly elevated it to a level that it really needs to be at.
You have, but what's your what do you want out of this review?
Our asks are still the same. We're still looking for that 10, 12 million pounds, up to 10 or 12 million pounds of production under contracts. We're not looking at tariffs. Maybe you don't call them quotas. There's other ways of doing that, but we want long-term contracts.
Who do you want these contracts from? Do you want the Department of Defense, the utilities being made to buy from you? I mean, what are you looking for?
Yeah, we want long-term contracts from utilities, from the Department of Defense. I mean, the Section 232 was a trade initiative, okay? It was a trade initiative. It's focused on trade. Well, now that we're in this larger working group, there are other potential fixes that aren't trade related. It doesn't mean that the trade issues are completely off the table, but it opens up the opportunities on where this could go and how it could potentially be funded, looking forward. Look at there. It's still early days. And you're right. 90 days goes by very quickly.
At what point did you recognize that actually this may not go the way you wanted it? Was it literally the day the memorandum came out, or did you sense anything before then?
I can say, and I can't say, publicly, but I had, for good reason, up until the last 24 to 48 hours, that we had very positive signals that we were going to had a good chance of receiving relief of this material for us in the United States uranium mining industry.
You made a statement to me the last time we spoke. You said you're a winner and you're going to make this thing work, okay? And I believe that you believe that, and that's great. But do you think winners do everything and anything it takes to win? And if you do you think the 232 is the right move for you then, and do you still feel that now? If
I had the opportunity to do it again, I would have done it again. I think that 232 was the right step. Mm-hmm. I think it's right in line with I've said it many times that we will be aggressive but not reckless. And look, in hindsight, it's been more difficult than perhaps I had thought at the beginning of the process. But that's life, isn't it?
Sure. Do you think you're going to be punished by utilities as a consequence of this? I know you just said, like, it's not personal, but will that be reflected in terms of their buying behavior with contracts going forward?
No, absolutely not. There's a lot of rumors, and as I said, if when you look at the other uranium producers in the world, you look at Canada, if you look at Australia, if they had the opportunity to take in a Section 232 route, I will bet you they would have taken that route themselves if they had that opportunity.
You've got the utilities with multitude of different energy sources as well as nuclear. You've got the gas guys, you've got big lobbyists and who've been fighting the good fight. And they've got to appease all of those people. I mean, I guess there's room for everyone. It's a question of who gets what slice of the pie.
Yeah. Look, I think it is we got a tiger by the tail. There's no question. But not all of these things have to be solved in a day, and they can't be solved in a day. But we do have things like the conversion and the uranium mining. That can be solved quicker because a lot of the infrastructure, a lot of it is in place. A lot of the people are in place. So,
but whose problem is that? You're saying they can look at that, but that's the problem of the company, isn't it? Why is that? Why does the review become responsible for getting U.S. companies up and running again? They can't affect price other than giving certainty to utility companies to be able to put some contracts in place. Is that the way it works?
The one complication with the United States compared to Russia and China is the U.S. Basically privatized the vast majority of the front end of the fuel cycle. There is no nuclear fuel cycle in the world that doesn't have government support in virtually every step of that fuel cycle. We're not trying to unduly burden the fuel cycle with our costs, but I can tell you that when you look at what we ask for, what we're asking for, it is very, very small in the scheme of the fuel cycle.
Are you saying that the government needs to step in and affect price or pay the differential between whatever spot is? I know you want a contract, but you want a contract at $50 plus. If the market isn't at $50, How does the state or federal government help you?
It's probably a combination of things. It could be a combination of the government. It could be a combination of the utilities wearing some of that load. They're receiving subsidies as we speak.
I know.
So, we're not asking for something that others aren't already receiving here. We know that everything is challenged, but you got to get back to what I said before. We are the largest consumer in the world, and we have zero capability right now. Is that where we want to be? Now, some people will say, I'm fine with that. And I say, no, I'm not fine with it. And I think the average person in DC understands this.
We need to remember the macroeconomics to this, for this industry, uranium industry, still look good. Nothing's changed. It doesn't matter 232 didn't give you what you wanted. It almost doesn't matter what comes out of the 90-day working group, because the fundamentals don't change. There's a massive supply demand gap, and it's getting bigger by the day. There's billions of dollars being spent on infrastructure. So I think people just need to remember that.
Yeah, and I just want to say something else too, is that that's absolutely right, and and the fundamentals are what the fundamentals are, and everybody kind of over focuses on 232.
If people buy into the macro story here, and I'm talking institutions, I'm talking banks, debt, etc., if they buy into that macro story, then surely now is the time to go and talk about some acquisitions of competitors, whether it be explorers with licenses, but with some kind of resource, or even producers perhaps struggling a bit, developers who are struggling a bit. Isn't now the time? Or do you not think you would get that ear?
Look at, in the 232 process, with the remedy that we asked for, we were staying away from M&A activity because we were looking for a industry solution, not just a solution for UR Energy and Energy Fuels. And we were trying to allow enough critical mass for there to be competition amongst the various parties, the few parties that remain in the United States. Well, if we're not going exactly that route, and you're more focused on critical infrastructure and whatnot, that direction may change. So, we are not opposed to M&A activities if it makes sense.
Do you think your shares were inflated before the 232 announcement? Do you think people were, thinking this could go your way, and you're back down at the level you should be?
Well, that's debatable. I think we got overpunished. But there's obviously people were in the shares because they thought there was going to be a positive outcome. The story was so strong. So look, I think if you look at right now, even after the 12th of July, a lot of the uraniums have come off, globally. There were people that are in the stock because, look, they thought that we had line of sight to positive cash flow and profits.
You said earlier on you don't regret doing it. You would do this again, but has it been a distraction?
We're trying to make our luck. We're not trying to just sit on our seat. There's a lot of people out there that all they're focused on is just doing nothing and preserving their capital, and that's not making your luck. That's just waiting. That's with hope as a strategy. So we will always try to make our luck. And Matt, as you know, I've been involved in this business for over 40 years. I produce uranium all over the world. Our assets are the best in the world for the sort of the size that we fit into in terms of these junior companies. I voted with my feet. I came back from Australia for this opportunity. I have no regrets that I did that either. But it's a tough business. And if you're not tough, you shouldn't be in it.